Hi, I'm Bob Butler from KCBS Radio. Welcome to a forum of candidates running for the Contra Costa County Board of Supervisors, District 5. Today's forum is co-sponsored by the Contra Costa County Clerk Recorder, the Contra Costa Television, the League of Women Voters of Diablo Valley, and the League of Women Voters of West Contra Costa. We're recording these roundtables here in the studio of Contra Costa Television. As part of our live broadcast, we invite you to ask the candidates questions. You can direct your message or your post of your question on Twitter @EngageCoco, @EngageCoco. District 5 covers much of the northern shore area of the county, including Pittsburgh, Bay Point, Martinez, Hercules, Rodeo, Crockett, Pacheco, Clyde, Alhambra Valley, Briones, Port Costa, and parts of Antioch and Pinole. The candidates are Federal Glover, Gus Kramer, and Sean Trambley. We do lots before the show to determine who's going to speak first, as we'll begin with. They didn't give me the order. So Federal,
yes,
you're the incumbent, you go.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here tonight, and I want to thank all the sponsors of this event. I am Supervisor Glover, and I've been in my 20th year of office for the Board of Supervisors. Over these last years, we have had an opportunity to do a lot of things that I think are very important to the county. First being physically responsible. One of the things that we've had the opportunity to do is to get back to a AAA rating in which we are able to serve the constituency of the county. Other things that's been very important has been consistently supporting the efforts of the urban limit line, which make sure that we have open space and continue to have the integrity of the county as a whole for quality of life. We also have been real responsible in terms of being able to deliver on transportation issues here. Me and my colleagues on the various transportation boards have brought in $1.8 billion worth of infrastructure for transportation needs, and we'll continue to fight that battle as we go forward. The other thing that I'm very proud of is the fact that victims of violent crimes now have 3 family justice centers that are open up in 3 regions of the county, being West, Central, and East, and that provides a great service for individuals. So I'm looking forward to continuing to work on these issues, as the county have many, but all of them are very important. These are 3 that's outstanding.
Now, you may not know Gus Kramer, but you know Gus Kramer because he sends you tax bills every year. Gus, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Bob. I appreciate that. I'm Gus Kramer. I've been your county assessor for the last 25 years. And before that, I worked for the probation department, the sheriff's office, and public works for many years. The reason I'm running for county supervisor for District 5 is I've watched the Board of Supervisors for the last 40 years, basically, and it leaves a lot to be desired. The fiscal responsibility of the board has been less than admirable. We have a new county administration building that they recently built, and it's become the Millennial Tower of Contra Costa County. They put it in the wrong spot. I told them for 5 years not to put it there, but they did. And it's sinking, and it's 20% smaller, and there's a $44 million deficit on that building because of the way it was handled. The biggest problem facing Contra Costa County today is homelessness. The homeless problem is rampant throughout the county, and it's starting to move into the suburbs. And people are really disturbed about having people leave excrement on their front lawns and camping in their side yards. The county has to address this. The county has to partner with nonprofits and with the churches and start addressing this problem in a much more active way instead of just dismissing it. The county has more transportation issues. Federal talks about his and the constituents have delivered $1 billion for transportation. They didn't deliver the $1 billion. I worked for Public Works 30 years ago, 25 years ago, and I was buying the land for the widening of Highway 4, and the money was already there. They just ultimately spent the last bit of it with the last slight widening of Highway 4. So that money's been there all along. The other issue is housing and affordable housing. Public agencies charge way too much for permit process to get things approved. And Federal and I have had this discussion many times, and I think he actually agrees with me, that the permit process needs to be streamlined and the price has to be reduced. When that happens, you're going to see more affordable housing built in Contra Costa County and accommodate the bottom economic rung of our population in Contra Costa County for housing. The last thing is affordable health care, and we can do that through the county hospital, which we'll expand upon later in this debate. Thank you very much.
Sean.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you to the League of Women Voters, and thank you to CCTV for having us here today for this forum. My name is Sean Trambley, and I'm running for county supervisor on 3 important issues that are facing this county: housing, transportation, and economic development. We need someone that is going to be looking for the next 20, 40, and 60 years, rather than stuck in the same decision-making process that we've been in for the last 20 and 40 also. We have to have a visionary leader that is willing to look and expand the county's opportunity around housing, around transportation, and around economic development. Everyone who gets up in the morning knows that getting on the freeway is a traffic jam. We are not going to be able to expand our freeways any further. So we need to start looking for alternatives, expanding bus access, easier access to BART and protecting parking there, and making walkable, livable communities so folks have easier access to those transportation options. And the big one, especially for the District 5, is we are right along the waterfront. We need a ferry, not yesterday, not today, but now. We need a ferry that will get us there, that will allow other people to be able to move, to commute into the cities and get off of our freeways. Housing is a huge crisis. My wife and I, we purchased our house just last year after 2 years of searching, and I know many other folks that in our age bracket have faced these challenges, that housing is too difficult to get and it takes too long. Kids after college are coming back to live with their parents. And we're not building enough. And affordable housing is one of the regional aspects that we have to address now. And in Contra Costa County, we have more opportunity to build, create jobs here, and get people moving again.
You mentioned the ferry. Where would the ferry go, and how long would it take to get there?
Well, some of the reports I've seen have, whether it's an express ferry or if it's one of the more traditional ferries, anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour, depending on the number of stops along the waterfront that it's making.
So 45 minutes to get from
St. Martinez
to downtown San Francisco?
Yes.
And if you were to drive that far?
Having done that commute before, it's about an hour and a half, and I'd much rather have a place with Wi-Fi and maybe some coffee on board.
Okay.
So
Go ahead.
just to say, in terms of ferry service, that is an issue that's being dealt with now as we speak. I have initiated conversations with both MTC as well as CCTA, in which we're working on doing a pilot program that will initially look at the cities of Antioch, possible Pittsburgh or Bay Point, and into Martinez onto Hercules. That would connect into the system in Richmond, taking you into San Francisco.
So I always wonder how long it'll take to get there. So from Antioch to drive, and I have to drive into San Francisco sometimes. If I have to be at work at 9, I got to leave the house before 7.
So we're talking about roughly an hour commute, and that is making all the initial stops along the way.
Will there be parking for the ferry? Because that seems to be the issue. We got the great BART station out there in Antioch.
Yeah, one of the other pieces that's been worked on, and I think you may have heard it today as you interviewed from Measure J, is interconnectivity to communities that will allow people to get access to those particular major arteries to the BART station, and also be able to take express buses along the way also.
Because Measure J requires a 2/3 vote. They tried it in 2016. Voters said no. What are your thoughts on Measure J? Do you think it's a good idea?
Measure J is a great idea, except if you read the paper recently, the measure is fraught with problems because it says it's a half-cent sales tax. It doesn't say half cent or 0.5% per dollar. It says half-cent sales tax. So if you take the Measure J literally, it means it's going to be a 0.5 cent per purchase, whether it be a $20,000 vehicle or a 50-cent Coke.
It says half cent per dollar, I thought.
It doesn't say that. It says a half cent per purchase. So it was an article in the paper about it the other day. So Federal's on the transportation group. I don't know who read it, who wrote it, but they screwed it up, and it's in Acosta County over $1 million to fix. So I suspect that Measure J will fail, and they're going to have to do it again with the proper language and educate the public on the proper language and where the money will be spent. I think a ferry service is great, but it's going to be expensive to ride. What we truly need, I like the idea of ferry service. I'm jealous of the people in Larkspur and Marin County. What we really need is to utilize our existing rights-of-way on our rail and our highways. That's bus services and trains. That is what's going to really move the masses to San Francisco and Oakland from the bedroom community of Contra Costa County and the bedroom communities from beyond in Tracy, Manteca, Stockton, that are coming right through Contra Costa County.
So in terms of,
One second. So talking about this, buses, trains, Measure J, one of the things they want to do is address the situation on BART. If you've ridden BART, and I have, and I remember getting on BART, I moved out here in 1995, and used to take BART from the Concord station. And it wasn't until you got into Oakland that you couldn't get a seat. Now you get on the train in Antioch, by the time you get to Pleasant Hill, there's no place to sit. How would Measure J address that?
Well, I'm not sure it'll give us more train cars, but we certainly need bigger trains to move more people, and I think BART as an institution needs to invest to create room for more riders. We need to have more parking available at stations like Lafayette, like Walnut Creek and Pleasant Hill. But we need to encourage more people to do so, and in getting that last mile, giving them bus access to BART, giving them ample parking when they're there, that would be critical. And I think Measure J can help with that aspect of it.
Because BART wants to give you train cars with fewer seats.
Yeah, they want us all standing there.
Well, that's the whole thing, and that's difficult. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
yes, I was just going to reiterate, if you have read the measure, it talks about transit systems. All of it is very consistent with transit and getting people, interconnectivity and getting people out of their cars and into transit systems, whether that's express buses, whether we're talking about light rail or BART itself.
You've been on the board 5 terms, this will be 20 years. Why do this again?
I question that myself, but I love what I do, and I think that we're at a very pivotal stage in the direction that the county is going, especially when we talk about finance, we're talking about job creation and how we are able to get jobs here within Contra Costa County, understanding because of Measure J that we want to get access to job centers. And I've been working on this my total time on the board, and will continue to do it. And I think that we're at that point where we're going to see the turn of light. And I disagree. I think the Measure J will pass because it has all the elements that through our polling shows that people are looking for transit systems.
So, Gus, I got to ask you, why would you want to join the board? I mean, you're suing them.
I'm suing the board because they made a grievous error. They violated the Brown Act, and they continue to violate the Brown Act almost every Tuesday. And the board knows it, and they're so nervous about it that the county council, in-house council, won't defend them. They've hired outside counsel to defend them. So it's a perpetrated cover-up. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but Federal knows what happened. They knows exactly what they did wrong, but nobody's got the character to stand up and say, you know what? We made a mistake, Gus. You're right. We should redo this and we should revisit this. But not one of those 5 board members has showed the character enough to stand up and do the right thing.
So why would you want to join a board like that?
I want to clean it up. For God's sakes, I've been the assessor for 25 years. I have dealt with problem people, high level and low people all over the place. And I'm used to solving people's problems. I served as a planning commissioner for 9 years for the city of Martinez. I was the city clerk for Martinez for 10 years. I run elections department. So I'm used to doing problem solving. There needs to be more transparency on the board. They need that. If they're going to have executive sessions or closed sessions, they should record them. or they should have notes taken by somebody so that when someone like me accuses them of wrongdoing, we can say, fine, prove you didn't do it wrong. Let an independent third party review the record and say yes or no.
Sounds reasonable. Sounds reasonable.
Sounds reasonable for a reasonable reason, and that is certainly something that I will not discuss here because it is in litigation. But I think that Mr. Kramer and his facts will be unveiled.
Okay. Let's switch to something that I think we all care about, homelessness. Contra Costa County, I don't know the numbers, but I know that there are homeless people all over the county. One of the things they're talking about is quality of life issues, and perhaps setting up some kind of a court system so that if you have one of these issues, you go to this court, you're given some kind of a sentence, it could be community service, and once you complete that, they expunge your record. Good idea, bad idea, what do you think?
I am always in favor of services and not jails. I think this would be an outstanding move in the right direction, and I think the county has a lot of work to stepping up and fulfilling that obligation. I'm proud to be supported by Councilmember Norley Gipner in Martinez, who has taken it upon herself to organize a new nonprofit that is providing a lot of services to homeless people in the city, because the county has not stepped up and is not doing enough. We have so much work to do. We are doing the bare minimum, and we need to be out there in the communities every single day helping folks that can't get ahead.
What do you suggest could be done?
Well, services. Provide, like what Norley is doing, providing clothes, providing showers, helping people get off their feet and have human dignity again, giving them access to a P.O. box, those kind of services, and then following up with support services, housing services, getting people into homes, and then worrying about health also as a kind of a comprehensive approach to helping these people that really have no help currently.
Gus?
I couldn't agree with Sean more. Sean has hit the nail on the head. You know, being homeless is not a crime, but committing a crime doesn't give you an excuse because you're homeless. So what we need to do is get these folks educated and get them the social services and the health services they need. We've got tons of open space in this county. And I'm not talking about park properties. I'm talking about sanitary district properties, water district properties, publicly owned properties by cities in the county that are fairly close to other government facilities that we could set up campgrounds for them and then provide the showers that Nora Lee is providing. Allow the faith-based and the nonprofit organizations to help more. And they're just not, there's no coordination between the county and those faith-based organizations and the churches in Martinez, in Antioch, and there is a mission in Richmond that's doing a pretty good job. And they're actually a model to somewhat follow. But the homeless, they need to be empowered a little bit. Let them just tell us what services they need. Tell us what housing they need. The problem with a lot of the shelters, they can't bring their pets. That's not allowed. And unfortunately, they can't bring their drugs, which is, I'll argue that one either way. But, they can't, and they're not allowed. But that's the nature of these people, and they have problems, and we have to be a little more understanding.
So if you have a situation like this, like a person that law enforcement comes across or social services comes across and you offer them the services, what do you do when they don't want it, when they turn it down?
And that's one of the biggest problems. Most people do not want the service. And those that do, we do provide that level of service. And I think what is missing from the dialogue that just took place is the fact that not only within the community of Martinez, but other communities are utilizing faith-based to make sure that people have adequate food, they're using showers, and we continue to try to put in models in which we're going to have services where people will be able to go to portable showers and what have you. One of the things that I think is also missing from the dialogue is we have core teams that are set up, so when people are looking for housing or shelter or some type of medical needs, those folks go out and address those issues. And if people are willing to take the assistance and the help, then there's teams out there to do it. Is it all 100%? No, this is an issue that is nationwide, and we have to work on it very collaboratively in how we resolve the problem. We have a very good homeless director that is doing an outstanding job in making a difference, but we need more, and we understand that, and we're working towards those.
But Federal, you said most people don't want help. Most of them do want help, and contrary to what you just said. Most people, about 75 or 80% of them do want some type of assistance and housing and a safe and warm place to be. So my statistics, I talked to Nora Lee, and what I get from her is it's about, 25% don't want the services or refuse the services. But the rest of them, mostly women with children, really need those services, and we need to look out for them.
Certainly, the face of the homeless population has changed over the decade because of the fact you used to see someone going down the street with a grocery basket and being homeless, a male in most cases. Now you see families that are living in their cars or living an element outside of any type of a shelter, and we have to continue to try to address those issues. One of the things that's also happening in terms of homeless service is a project that will take place in the city of Antioch over the next year, and that is building a homeless facility. But that doesn't all solve the problem. And one of the things we try to do is also connect people back with their families or with relatives in which they can have shelter.
Sonoma County Board of Supervisors a couple of days ago approved a plan to build a homeless, not an encampment, but they've got county land where they're going to put tiny houses, for lack of a better, 64 square foot houses. And they think they have enough of these where they can get everybody off of this one trail up there that's become a real problem. But they're going to do it for 3 months.
Bob, this isn't new. If you remember the last scene from the movie of The Grapes of Wrath, when they show up in California from Oklahoma, they go to a CC camp, which was very popular during the Depression. And that's kind of what we need to do, where give them a safe place to be, and they can feel a sense of self-governance and self-direction. That's what I think we need, a little more respect, that's all.
So that's a great idea, to have a place for people to go. But having them there for 3 months, 6 months, even if they're working, if they're only making $15 an hour,
right,
what are they going to do?
Well, I think this is indicative of our broader housing crisis that we're facing. Over the last 10 years, we've created only one housing unit per 5 jobs. Our housing is much needed here. What I think we also need to realize also is students and young folks are also having a hard time staying in their houses. So 44% of community college students here in Contra Costa County are housing insecure, and many of them are living in their cars or don't know where their next month's rent is going to come from. We have to look at this holistically, and yes, there's a homelessness problem, but there's a housing crisis overall. We're not building enough. We're not building enough near transit centers. We're not building enough near economic centers, and it's trickling down, and the most vulnerable are ending up on the streets, and more people are on the verge.
So Senator Wiener has a bill in Sacramento, SB 5. If it's approved, it would encourage more building around transit centers. Are you familiar with this legislation?
Very much.
So if you're at the Pittsburgh Bay Point BART station, there is some vacant land near there. Would that work? There's some vacant land, not any vacant land near the Pittsburgh Center. In Antioch there is. Would that be a solution to be able to, because we're talking about not just about the homeless, but about people that are working that can't afford a place to live or can barely afford a place to live. We talk about affordable housing. Where does that money come from to build, quote, affordable housing or housing people can afford?
Transit centers would be, just like there are next to the Pleasant Hill BART station, those transit centers were developed by the county 25 years ago. I was part of it. And that's exactly what we need in Antioch, Pittsburgh, Concord, and Brentwood ultimately. You need those transit centers with small commercial and restaurants and services on the first floor and multiple level affordable housing above them. That's what we need.
And transit isn't just BART. Let's be clear that Amtrak runs along the northern waterfront as well. And we've got
right.
space around Amtrak in Martinez. Hercules has been waiting for an Amtrak station for a very long time. And those are great places to keep people moving because we're not going to be able to expand BART to those places as well.
And that's exactly the things that we're working on, is building transit villages around, where there's land available to do that. And a lot of that is going to take place within the cities because the county only has the unincorporated areas, but the cities working together with county and working with transportation hubs, it's what makes that difference. The other thing is when people are talking about the ability to deliver transit, it's very clear that it's all modes of transit. It's not just BART. And I spoke earlier about the fact that we want that type of development to take place where people have access to main arterials such as BART. But that's not the only opportunity. I think the other thing that we fail to realize is that homelessness is not an issue that resides just here in Contra Costa County. It's all over the place, and it's going to take a number of things to change the face of what that looks like. So it's not just the county, but it's engagement from the state. One of the things that will be on the board agenda on Tuesday is accessory dwellings in which people can build on their properties and be able to rent those units out.
Like an in-law unit or something like that?
Yes.
Okay. Let's change gears a little bit. Contra Costa County, like many government agencies, has an unfunded pension obligation. I don't even know how much it is, but what are you going to do about that?
One of the things that we've been able to do is through OPAD, other post-employment benefits, is that several years ago we had a $2 billion deficit or liability. We have cleaned that up because we put a plan in place to address it, and now it's down to 600 and some odd million.
Only 600 million.
In terms of the, yes, only 600 million. But we have a plan in place within the next 30 years that'll all be paid down because we're doing pay-go, we're doing set-asides in terms of addressing that particular issue. When we deal with the pension plan, it's pretty much the same thing, in which we have to have a plan in place and how we're going to be able to address that. One of the things is that one of the obligation bonds will be done in 2024, in which we look to recover about $27 million. And that we need to make sure is a pay-go as we deal with other significant services that are not being delivered.
One thing I'd like to add regarding that pension obligation bond is when it's coming up to maturation, this is an opportunity for us to reinvest in our county workers. For a long time, they have not been able to get pay raises, and they do not have retirement health care. And I think this is an opportunity, whereas the Board of Supervisors was able to vote themselves a raise, which was fine. I'm glad you guys pegged it to the municipal judges, but we can't forget about the workers that keep this county running on a day-to-day basis and need our support from the community.
You trying to get Gus a raise?
The workers, not the electeds.
Actually, I'm the only elected department head that the board maliciously didn't give a raise this year. And Federal, I thought you, with a little character under your belt, would have stepped up to the plate and said, you know what, I got issues with Gus, but he does a good job as assessor, and he should get his raise. Instead, you were punitive and didn't give me a raise this year. But I'll take that because, you know what, that's all right. I'll rise above it. As far as the bonds go, you talk about 30 years from now. 30 years from now, you're going to be dead, you're going to be dead, I'm going to be dead.
I'll be here.
And he'll be here. So.
But it's looking out for the future of our workers.
But it's too far. Those things change, Federal, and we need to do something more expedient. We need to talk to county employees about changing the way we do the retirement system for the county. We need to talk to SARA, which is the county retirement system, and it needs to be addressed immediately, not 5 years from now, not 10 years now, and not kicking it down the road 30 years. I'm sorry.
Do you think there ought to be term limits on the Board of Supervisors?
I think there are term limits. No, not literally, but should there be term limits? No. I think the people have a right to choose. You know, that was one of the biggest mistakes the Republicans made in the state legislature in California. They thought, oh my God, we got to get Willie Brown out of the legislature. He's running the state of California ostensibly as the governor. And so they thought, we'll get term limits in there, and we'll limit Willie Brown, get him out, and we'll get all these other liberal Democrats out of the legislature. Well, today there are more Democrats in the state assembly and Senate than there are Republicans, to the point where they have a supermajority. So term limits backfired on the Republicans. It blew up in their face. Shame on them for doing it. I think that people have a right to say how long someone stays in office and when they should go, and I believe in the people's right to say so. Term limits is an artificial ceiling, it's an artificial barrier, and I think it's bad government.
Sean?
I don't necessarily support term limits, because I do believe that the constituents have the right to choose. But I also think it's incumbent upon the elected official to step down when they know that they should. 4 years ago and even 8 years ago, Federal has said he wasn't going to run for another term.
It's true.
And here we are again with the same rotating cast of characters running for public office in this county when we have big challenges that we're going to be facing over the next 20, 40, and 60 years. These decisions are going to matter now. And we need people that are really going to be focused, roll up their sleeves, and get to work.
Term limits, I don't agree with. I think that as long as someone is doing the job, the people has that obligation to select those individuals that's there. Obviously, I did make the statement that I would not be running, and that was because of health condition, but as you can see, I'm feeling pretty good these days. And I want to continue the work. And one of the things about stepping down is that you want to step down to someone that's going to be qualified to do the job and maintain the type of enthusiasm around the work. And quite frankly, I didn't see that up in the candidates that came forward.
You know, speaking...
I'm wounded.
Speaking of the county and the Board of Supervisors and all county officials, we've had, in Contra Costa County in the last couple of years, we've had a DA resign over campaign finance violations and perjury. The former clerk recorder stands accused of campaign finance violations. We've had judges kicked off the bench. You're suing the board. You know, what do we do to reestablish trust in our elected leaders? And you know, how do we restore confidence in the elected officials in this county? And I'll start with you.
I would argue you need to elect new leaders. We have, as I said earlier, we've had the same rotating cast of characters, and we've gotten ourselves into the same problems over and over. It's like an episode of Groundhog Day. I think everyone remembers the Bill Murray movie where these scandals are just keep happening year after year. We need new folks that are going to be looking for visionary leadership, looking forward, and know how to keep their hand out of the cookie jar.
Gus?
I agree with Sean. He's right. I've watched this Board of Supervisors, not just this particular board, but boards going back 40 years. And it's progressively gotten worse. That's why I suggest that we videotape what goes on in closed sessions, because that's when the deals are made. That's when the special interests from the oil companies, the garbage companies, the marijuana people are throwing their money into this campaign. And Federal will be the benefactor of all that. He will. And that's when all these deals come into play. So with that being said, Sean's right. We need to show more integrity and more transparency for public officials. I'm extremely transparent. All the business I've ever done is all a matter of public record. The East Bay Times has accused me of heinous issues. Now, why do they do that? Why do they repeatedly print what they do? It's because they, like the oil companies, have an outstanding appeal against the county in my office for over $60 million. That's 60 million reasons to go after Gus Kramer. I defy anybody else to stand up to my record. The State Board of Equalization of California says I run one of the best assessor's office and one of the most honest assessor's offices in the state of California. I'll stand on that record.
When you talk about the Board of Supervisors, I don't recall any board members being arrested. Now, I've been around only for like 30 years, but I'm not sure, is it the board the problem? Or, I mean, we're talking about judges, we're talking about the district attorney. That seems to be the issue there, not the board itself.
Board members being arrested, ask Federal.
Federal?
I don't know what he's talking
Oh,
about.
federal.
In my term on the Board of Supervisors, there's nothing about me.
But what do you think, how do we
In terms
reestablish
of-
the confidence after all these other issues?
Well, and I think that our public is the ones that has to make that determination. And transparency is something that I totally agree with, and the fact that people have to have that integrity, and in many cases, things may not be all that Gus himself is, in court now for a number of charges, and, it's for the court to make that determination.
You talk about, I'm sorry, go ahead.
The Board of Supervisors does not elect individuals. And so their hold in terms of any judicial things relies with the court.
You talked about recording basically executive sessions and having that available, but executive session by its very nature is when you do things that don't need to be reported to the public. I mean, you can approve the issues when you come out of executive session, come out of closed session, but wouldn't that be a violation to record it and make it available to the public?
You would record it in case somebody challenged it, like I am. I'm challenging what they did in closed session was illegal, and now they're conspiring among themselves, which is a felony, and then they go outside and hire outside counsel to represent them, taxpayers' expense to represent them, which takes it to the next level. It's a RICO violation. The federal agent in charge in San Francisco, the FBI, should be all over this, but they're not. I don't know why, but they should be. Our DA's not doing a thing about it, and I understand why she's not. They appointed her. So there's all this political backhand shaking in the back room, and it needs to be more clear. It needs to be more transparent.
And
That's my whole point. Is let's do things in public. Probably 80% of the work that is done in executive session or closed session should be done in front of the people, in public. And the only reason they do it behind closed doors is mischief. I'm sorry.
And you would do that if you got elected?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
It'd be number one thing.
Let me posit this. We're talking about electing new leadership and putting new blood on the board. Isn't there a danger of losing that institutional knowledge if you do that?
One thing that's very clear is that on a national scene, it's totally chaotic what's going on there. You need leadership here at the local level that is going to be able to make sure that this county stays intact and stays in a place where we could have the type of financial stability that exists today. We need people that have leadership on a number of these regional committees that have made the connections, that they have access to our legislators and to other entities that bring resources here. And you need that institutional knowledge in many ways. And when someone is looking to run for the Board of Supervisors, they should understand that level of governance in terms of how you are able to connect and make sure that your representation on these particular boards make a difference for the county.
Bob?
I want to thank, we're out of time.
Oh, my goodness.
I got to thank, you have time for a closing statement, but thank you to our panel for answering some of these very important questions. Each of you will now have 90 seconds to make a closing statement, and I'm going to let you go first since you're the incumbent.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you for this opportunity to have addressed some critical issues here in the county today. I think one of the things that's important in terms of my tenure on the board is that it has been that of really dealing with tough issues from refineries to our budget, the homelessness problem that was spoke of earlier, and our ability to maintain our urban limit line, our growth boundaries. And I think that it's important that as we look at the critical issues that we have facing us, that you have a voice that is actually out there doing the work. I've served on most of these very tough committees down through the years, and I look forward to continuing the effort that has been put forth and bringing it about. I have endorsements from some key people within the state and the national level with congressional leadership also in the State Assembly here, as well as the State Legislature, as well as the Assembly. I have endorsements from key individuals here within the county, representation from all cities that I represent, as well as the unincorporated area. So I thank you for listening tonight, and I hope that you will continue to support the effort that I'm providing here in the county and vote for me on March 3rd.
Sean.
As your supervisor.
Thank you, Bob, for having us tonight. Thank you, everyone, for watching tonight. I, once again, would like to thank you for watching, and we have a big choice ahead of us in March. This is an opportunity for new leadership to look forward for the next 20, 40, and 60 years to really make some big decisions. As the incumbent has brought up that this is about leadership, I would argue it's more than just fiscal leadership. It's about being in the communities and being available and doing the work that will help people get ahead. It is too hard for young families and working families to buy a house, to start a small business, or to commute to work in the mornings. 1.1 million people in Contra Costa County clog our freeways and roads every morning. We need to think creatively, we need visionary leadership, and we need to get away from the ways we've done business in the past. I have worked on housing and voting rights and money and politics legislation on the national level for 10 years. I moved back here to start my own company, to work on the affordable housing crisis and to defend open spaces and open lands. I want to carry this experience with me to the Board of Supervisors, and I hope you will support me, and I would appreciate your vote.
Thank you. And to wrap it up, Gus.
Oh, thank you, Bob. All due respect to you, I was kind of hoping for Rebecca Cabral to do this thing, but we're stuck with Bob.
I'll let her know.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I'm Gus Kramer. I've been your county assessor for 25 years. I have experience in many departments in the county, and some in the leadership and some in rank and file. And I really have knowledge that would really help the taxpayers of this county on the Board of Supervisors and getting things straightened out with your tax dollars. The biggest problem we're dealing with, again, is homeless. We need to address that so it doesn't impact property values throughout the county, because that would be a travesty. We have traffic issues to address, housing issues, and health care. Health care for working people that can't quite afford the health care that's available today. We need to do that through CCHP at the county hospital. It's a wonderful program, and we need to address that forthwith. I'd like to talk about the safety in this county and the public service that's available. Please, I've been your assessor. I've been with you for 25 years. During the recession, I was there for people to help them get their property taxes lowered. I want to be on the board so I can monitor that even closer on so many different aspects. Thank you. Don't forget to vote for Gus Kramer on March 3rd. Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen. That concludes our forum for candidates running for the Contra Costa County Board of Supervisors, District 5. Once again, the candidates, Federal Glover, Gus Kramer, and Sean Trambley. For more information on the candidates, visit the website votersedge.org. To view this broadcast online, go to www.cocovote.us. The Elections Office would like to remind voters to go online to check your voter registration status and consider if you'd want to get your ballot by mail. I'm Bob Butler. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to vote by March 3rd.